renaissance for Hindu Dharma. So the Free Temples movement is probably the most important movement that we can support and that we can keep in touch with, and a lot of things going on with all the cases that are being filed, as well as I think the latest that we've heard is some rumbles in Karnataka. I think even in Uttarakhand, I'm hearing some things, but I think Ramesh ji, you would know better, and we will let you speak and tell us a little bit, about the overall movement. You'll be sharing your presentation, right? I will give you sharing rights also before I start. Pratyushi, can you do that? I don't know if I'm able to see that.
It says only host can share.
Right. I'm a co-host. So I think we are on. And we are ready to kick it up. So I'm going to do a brief introduction, even though Ramesh ji does not really need an introduction. We are all, been listening to him, following him on his social media, Twitter, and also in our WhatsApp group. And Ramesh ji, welcome. And I want to just talk about some of the work that you're doing. Ramesh ji actually gave up his job as a banking professional to take up this fight full time, to go to the legal battles to the dusty courts of India and fight this big fight to keep our temples free, to encroachment of the lands of the temples, and various other issues that come up, which basically are tantamount to stealing from our temples. And the temples, as you know, are under the state control. Ramesh ji is a president of the Indic Collective. He's also president of the Temple Worshippers Society. And he comes from a lineage of Shaivite, from a Shaivite tradition. And he has a lot of knowledge on temples and how they should be managed, and just overall understanding of our cultural heritage. So Ramesh ji, I think all of us are keen to understand what is going on at this time, as well as just an overview of some of the facts related to the Free Temples movement. So I would like to hand over to you to please take it away and share with us your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Rishaji. Namaste. Namaste, everyone. Rishaji has given me 3 topics, each of which need separate presentations. One is, can Hindus manage their temples once the government gets out, or the government relinquishes its control? This question is being asked in almost every forum. Okay, government goes, then what happens? Not many know that the endowments department, with which the various state governments control temples, legally has to be manned only by Hindus. So if the Hindus in the government can manage temples, why not the Hindus outside the government? This is what Swami Dayananda Saraswati raised in 2014 in a conference in Bangalore. The second topic was what is happening in Karnataka. Since I'm somewhat involved in it and things are still at the nascent stage, I will not be able to give all the details, but I'll give some background and what is happening there. Good news overall in Karnataka. Then some updates on Tamil Nadu, on the cases we filed and the orders we got and the dismissals we got also, and what we are going to do about it. So I would like to share a presentation. This will be in the group, be like preaching to the choir, if I may use that expression. But still, I want to Let me just share the file. Give me a minute, please. Just a minute.
So, Tiaji, I'm glad you're sharing the presentation because we do have a few new members that have joined the group. So it's really good that we'll be refreshing.
Bruce.
And we are also.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is there
a problem?
Did I go out of the system?
No, you're there.
I'm there. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Now, let me try again sharing this. I need to allow Zoom to share. Please bear with me for a minute. Richaji, shall I send the presentation to you by WhatsApp and you can share it?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Okay, I'm not able to share the file. I'm sorry. You will have to host that file for me, that PPT for me. It's got many slides, but they are self-explanatory, and we can quickly go through them, and then something on the Karnataka and in Tamil Nadu, including the Chidambaram temple issue. Then we can move to question and answers. Richaji, I sent the file to you. You might have got it.
I'm still waiting on it. I don't see it. I don't see it.
I sent it to you on the. Okay, or shall I read it? Read it from there and make the presentation without the slides.
Yeah, you can send it to me, TRG, and also start it. Just in the interest of time. Oh, I see it now. I think it's come up. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, basically, when we talk about temples, in a Sanatan Dharma system, temples are not just a place of worship. They are not prayer halls, as the Abrahamic religions have. They have prayer halls. They can convert anything into a prayer hall, and they can reconvert them to ordinary buildings or sites also. But in our Sanatan Dharma and the temple Dharma, we do establish the presence of a god or a goddess through prana pradishta, and then the temple becomes sacred and it is there forever. It is established once for all for generations to come. So the governance of a temple should be as per dharma, and dharma is what we follow. Others have religion, we have dharma. In the 1987 Hindi adoption of the constitution, the equivalent term of religious denomination is dharmik sampradaya. So the term for religion is dharma. So the temple administration, the temple governance should have a dharmic framework. And this is what we had in every village, town, or city. In fact, many of the towns and villages were around the temples. And the temples were the responsibility of the local communities. They took care of the upkeep and management. But in the last 2 generations, or even 3 generations in some places, we have lost this vital dharmic duty to the government. Of course, government is not doing it as a dharmic duty. Government is doing it as a control exercise. Sooner or later, not very late, I hope. Very soon is not is a utopian dream, but it will come. It will come. It has to come anytime within a year or two. We are going to get our temples back, and how are we going to run them? That is the whole topic. While planning to run the temples without government, we must remember one important thing, that temples were institutions, are still institutions. They have a pivotal role in the society. They are the hub of the Hindu society. Earlier, they were home to learning and knowledge. Temple is the place where dance, music, art flourished. Temple is the place where people used to come and settle the disputes or enter into trade agreements. And our Sanatan values and culture sprung from temples. They were imbibed to our children inside the temples and in the temple festivals that took place around the temples or outside the temples. Once government came 2 generations ago, we lost the temple culture, which is Vedic culture. People might say in the Vedas, no temples are mentioned, but based on the Vedas, Agamas have come, and based on Agamas, temples have come. The biggest loss, because government took over the temples, is the voluntarism that was prevalent among Hindus. Every community had a role to play in temples. Not people give you gyan saying that the scheduled caste and tribe, everybody had a role to play. And it is not just the Brahmin who does the pujas in the temple. At least in Tamil Nadu, out of the 44,000 temples that government controls, less than 6,000 temples have Brahmin priests. The others are all the so-called non-Brahminical priests of various castes, fishermen, Dalits, merchants, communities, and all. And because government took over, that Sanatan network that transcends caste and communities was lost. The true income of the temples was lost. Temples supported and supported dharmic institutions that started dwindling. We had 4,000 Veda Padashalas in Tamil Nadu in 1947, run by temples. Today we have less than 10 run by temples. Besides this, we have lost art, craft, artists, artisans, music. And one of the biggest losses is the loss of heritage. Our icons stolen, our murals not taken care of, and the temples made a place of crass commercialization. In 1947, 1950, that is even before independence, in the southern states, government control of temples started. It was a missionary agenda, and it was pushed as if that the governments are doing something good for the Hindus. There were problems with temple administration and some trustees and all that, but there were problems everywhere. There were problems with the madrasas, there were problems with the waqfs, there were problems with the churches, but only temples were targeted. And after independence and after the constitution coming into place, the laws became more stringent, the control became more vehement. Even though the Indian constitution said every denomination, whether Hindu or Christian or Sikh or Muslim, they could run their own religious and charitable institutions. They could administer them by cells. This is what the constitution says, even today. But state governments, they did not want to give up the control of the temples. And they used various loopholes in the judgments by the courts, which were wishy-washy, and they continued to control the temples. As early as 1954 or 1951 also, many provisions of the Endowments Acts were struck down, of the Orissa Act, of the Tamil Nadu Act, of the Karnataka Act and all. Richaji, I think I'm on slide 6 or 7.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it, but you are on the first slide. Please come to slide 6 or 7. Yeah, yeah. The previous one, please.
Okay, I apologize. I had to close a lot
Not
of
at all, not at all.
apps.
No, it's okay. They are all introduction. So what does the Constitution say is that every sampradaya or every denomination can administer its own religious and charitable institutions. Then came the judgments of the high courts and Supreme Courts. They said, yes, government can make laws and they can regulate. They cannot control or administer. The Constitution bench of 7 judges in Shirur Mat case said, the administration of a religious institution cannot be taken away from a denomination and vested in a secular authority, the secular authority being a government authority. The same thing was said in the Ratilal Panachand Gandhi case, again a constitution bench of the Honorable Supreme Court in 1954. Subsequent judgments started giving varied definitions of the word denominations and how most of the Hindu sampradayas were excluded from the definition of the Western definition of denominations. And that's how the governments still continue to control our temples. We'll come to that. The denomination definition in the Shirur Mat judgment pertains only to a mutt. It doesn't pertain to a temple. That definition was given in 1951 by the Madras High Court. And the appeal made against the judgment was dismissed by the Supreme Court. So that judgment defining the definition of a temple denomination should be followed even today, but that is not the case. The court started following the Shirur Mat definition of a mutt and started applying it to temples. You should have a common organization. You should have a common set of people having a common belief, a common name, etc., which is a definition of a church. And basically, the definition comes from the Oxford Dictionary of 1897 edition. Can you believe that? 1897 edition relating to a church denomination was applied to Indian Dharmic Sampradayas. So in any case, the court said it cannot be vested, the administration of a temple or a mutt or a Hindu endowment cannot be vested in a secular authority. That is not being followed at all. So as we move to the next slide, Richaji. Richaji, next slide, yes. So in 1965, February 10th, February 8th, Constitution Bench of Supreme Court gave 2 conditions for a temple to be taken away. One is a case must be made out. That is, there should be a proven instances of mismanagement warranting the appointment of a government executive officer. And the appointment must be for a prescribed period. That means what is being followed by the Reserve Bank of India. If they find some bank not performing well or the bank is about to get into liquidation due to mismanagement, what do? They replace the board of directors by its own officers. They set right the bank, either by cleaning the administration or merging it to another bigger bank. And they do it all within 3 months or 6 months. And then the bank is running on its own again with the proper administrators in place. The same thing with the company law board. If a company is seriously guilty of mismanagement and the shareholders complain, the directors are replaced with proper directors or with some nominees of the company law board for the time being. And once the mismanagement is rectified, they come out. The same with cooperative societies. The same with a society running a school or a college or an organization. The registrar of societies appoints an administrative officer for a temporary period. But a place of worship, it is taken over without proven instances of mismanagement. Just because public come and worship there, And because they have hundis, all these unsustainable reasons are applied, and the government takes over the temple, and the courts are completely, sync with it. That's the most upsetting thing. How can the courts watch a brazen violation by the government targeted towards Hindu citizens and in violation of the earlier Supreme Court judgments? This is the most intriguing thing. My 10, 12 years in the temple liberation field, I find the bureaucrats among the most important reason for temples to be under government control. The bureaucrats advise the politicians who are greedy for contracts and looting. But as I dig in deeper, as I file more and more cases, I find the unspeakable judgments of these high courts and Supreme Courts, which do not care for the Hindu citizens' rights or for the real and proper dharmic administration of temples, as the prime reason why our temples are still under government control. But the early 60s and all, there were good judges. There is another SDG Pandarasanidhi case of 1965. The judgment came on 10th February 1965, where the court said the government cannot continue forever in a temple. And when the Tamil Nadu government tried to extend the notification of some 50 temples by another 5 years, the court struck down the notification. These should be the examples which court should follow now. Next slide, please. So in Tamil Nadu, which is where I'm working on the temple scenario, primarily from Tamil Nadu, I have hundreds of temples where the government is functioning with an invalid order of appointment of executive officer. Invalid because there is no period of operation mentioned in the order. There is no reason why the order was made. Then, surprisingly, in 200, 300, or 400 temples, there is no order ever issued appointing an executive officer, but you will find a government servant there claiming to be the executive officer and drawing salary in tens of thousands, if not in lakhs. I have filed applications under the Right to Information Act for more than 400 temples and got replies in at least 200, where they say, we do not seem to have the order of appointment of an executive officer made for the very first time to this temple. Meaning, the executive officer is sitting there without any order of appointment at all. So out of the 400, I got replies for 200. The other 200 did not reply. And if you go check the 44,000 temples, you'll find there are no orders of appointments at all. This is a brazen violation. Next slide, please. We'll quickly go through it. The temples are to revert to the same. BJP has come to power nearly 8 years ago. And in another 2 years, they have another election. This time, the clamor, the demand for releasing temples is much louder. It happened in Uttarakhand. It is happening by way of an initiative by Chief Minister Bommai in Karnataka. It will happen elsewhere. 2.5 crore missed calls were given when Jaggi was there. Did a campaign before Tamil Nadu election. I don't know why he suddenly kept silent now, but anyway, he did a great campaign, and 2.5 crore missed calls were given in support of the campaign to release temples. Now, more people are aware of the government looting, and they are also aware how the other religions are running their institutions without any control, without any breathing down the neck. So temples are to return, but at the same time, the temple should go back to those persons or those communities those groups from whose hands they were taken over. It cannot be like forming a central board or a Vatican-like structure and then vesting the authority there and pulling all the resources and then distributing to it. No, it will not work like that. And anyone demanding is either ignorant or they are agenda oriented. I'm strongly saying this. Next slide, please. So broadly speaking, there are 5 areas of temple administration. Primarily, the temple is established for religious purposes. So the daily pujas, the festivals, the consecration of the temple, the rituals. So how do we manage them? How do we regulate them so that they happen without fail? That's the primary purpose of the temple. Then there are a lot of properties endowed to the temple: jewelry, cash, utensils, then immovable properties like buildings, sites, agricultural lands, etc. You need to have day-to-day administration. Small, medium, big temples, it differs. Crowd management differs. You need to keep the place of Bhagwan clean, and there should be transparency in income and expenses. As far as ancient temples are concerned, there are more than 400 temples which are more than 1,000 years old in Tamil Nadu. Rest of the northern states are not so lucky. They had to bear the brunt of invasion and destruction. But even there are a lot of temples which are more than 100 years old, 200 years old, 500 years old. So the heritage, antiquity, the aesthetic values, they should be seriously taken care of and preserved. And every temple should be associated with charities and its own institution, depending on the size and wealth and income. These are also important area of temple administration. Next slide, please. I'm just giving an example of a temple in South Tamil Nadu called Vedaranyeshwara Temple. This temple was originally administered by Sri Lankan Jaffna Tamils because Sri Lanka is only 60 kilometers away by sea from this Vedaranyam. This temple owns 32,000 acres currently, of which 15,000 acres are forest land. And forest lands can also provide a lot of income to the owners. But more than 10,000 acres of salt pans, which are extremely, extremely income productive. Unfortunately, of these 10,000 acres of salt pans, 2,400 acres are with the central government, the NDA governments, before that the Congress government, Salt Corporation, which pays, believe me when I say this, which pays 2 rupees per acre per annum as the lease rent to a temple. Whereas for a Waqf, they want to pay the market rent. For Islamic charity, which is owning properties, they say they are entitled to market rents. For the salt pans, which is giving easily 1.5 lakhs profit per acre every year, they are giving 2 rupees per annum. Imagine if central government can indulge in such injustice. What about the state government, which are brazenly atheist and brazenly anti-Hindu? Next slide, please.
Actually, I just want to quickly ask you, like, is this something that we can file a case about, or how does it work?
Yeah, I'm planning a case, but I have issued a notice to the central government. Let them reply or not reply. Then I will file a case on this. They are quoting a 1950 Supreme Court judgment which said this is a permanent lease and this 2 rupees is okay. But subsequent to that, there are many judgments, there are many amendments of law which say that the market rent has to be realized.
So I've moved to the next slide. TRG, I think is the screen frozen? I think
And
TRG may have
she's
to.
doing.
So now we go into the next slide, which again quickly here, we must not put in democracy into temple management. Like
TRG, your screen is frozen.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So there are qualifications for trustees, very, very important qualifications. One is internal qualifications of religious knowledge, shastras, knowledge about the particular temple, the custom and practices of the temple. Then the external qualifications of administration, administrative experience, skills, and the person's integrity, etc. We need to have an overseeing body, which will not be like a government body controlling or even regulating, but we need an overseeing body to which certain things can be raised. Next slide, please. We need a Dharmic Parishad.
Right. I don't know why my screen is freezing sometimes. I have to go back and okay, here we go.
Okay. So we must remember that every temple belongs to one sampradaya or other. I'll come to the last point of this slide. The 1987 adoption of Hindi Constitution. In 1949, the Hindi translation of the Constitution was ready. It was done by committee under the chairmanship of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, but for some reason or other, mostly a Nehruvian reason, it was not adopted. The English Constitution was in place, and from the English Constitution, the Supreme Court started interpreting certain key words like denomination, religious denomination, based on Western dictionary, and till date we are suffering because of those interpretations. But in 1987, Constitution adopted the Hindi version of the Constitution and introduced Article 394-A, which said whatever is there in the English Constitution is there in the Hindi, and vice versa. And whatever is there in the Hindi is in the English Constitution. And any difficulty in matching the meaning, it has to be referred only by the president. They did a thorough job of translation and ensured that nobody picks just for the sake of picking faults and filing cases. So now, if I am an Indic religion, if I am a Hindu sampradaya, I can go to the court and say, listen, I'm not an Abrahamic religion. I'm a Dharmic sampradaya. I belong to Ramanuja's version of Sri Vaishnavism. And as a Dharmic sampradaya, I should be allowed to administer my own religious institution. I should be given the same fundamental rights of a religious denomination since I'm a Dharmic sampradaya. And how can the court say, no, if you're a sampradaya, you don't have rights. Only if you're a religious denomination, you'll have these rights. Courts cannot say that. They simply cannot say that. I don't know why anybody is not taking up this to the Supreme Court. Of course, we wanted to take it with the Sabarimala review petition, but that review petition never happened. Today, bringing a case before the Supreme Court is become extremely difficult. The Supreme Court takes only in the opinion, the most important cases. And they take cases relating to Tirupati land being given to the collectorate only to rule against the temple. Or Supreme Court takes up a Sri Sailam temple matter where Muslims want to put up shops inside the temple. They say temples are government property and there should be no discrimination as to religion. For such reasons that they take up cases immediately. But for the reasons of giving the Sampradayic rights, the denominational rights to all Hindu citizens, the case is never taken up. Swami Dayananda's case is pending from 2012, almost 10 years now. So what determines a sampradaya, what determines a denomination, are the tenets and practices followed by each sampradaya. I'll give you an example. There are 5 important, but the Sabarimala temple, one of the 5, is a different sampradaya. It is called a Kavu temple. Kavu means forest. It is a forest temple which is not open throughout the year. It is open only a few days in a month, and for a whole month in a year. And its puja paddhatis are different. And the people who can come there, they have to observe penance. There are so many different things. So it belongs to a completely different sampradaya. It is not the same Ayyappa temple that we see in other parts of Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, or elsewhere. So the Sabarimala temple, even though it's a Ayyappa temple, it's a different Ayyappa temple. Similarly, the Tirumala Tirupati Balaji, who goes by the name of Srinivasa Perumal, is not the same as Ranganatha Perumal in Sri Lanka. The Rama in Ayodhya will be different from the Rama in Tamil Nadu. Same deities, but different murtis, if I may say so. So the declaration as to the sampradaya of a temple must be known from the tenets of the sampradaya. Next slide, please.
Yes. So TRG, is that information available, or have we, because it's given the dilution, it's available.
Okay. Yes. Every temple has its own paddhati and own puja, this thing. There'll be a lot of common things, but there'll be something to differentiate them. So when we take over the temples, we need to initially focus much on the qualifications, on the selection of the first trustees. There are a lot of court frame schemes which the government abandoned. The courts have framed the schemes of administration for various temples, especially the big ones. We must go back to them and adapt those schemes of administration with the modern advantage of bringing online system, online transparency, accountability, external audit, etc., etc. Today, there are many banks in India, nationalized private banks, which have hundreds of thousands of crores as turnover, etc., etc., and income. You take State Bank Group, or you take Canara Bank, or you take ICICI Bank. Their volume of transactions phenomenal, but they do publish their annual accounts, audited accounts, etc., etc., and they have certain other criteria of accounts that they need to publish as per Reserve Bank of India guidelines. So we need to have these regulations which government can bring. They can regulate from a distance. And the temple administration is an ancient practice in India. And the best among the practices is the Chola system of administration, which is called the Kodale system, or selection from a pot. The best qualified persons' names are written in a pot. You can't write in the pot. The unqualified persons' names will not go. Only qualified persons' names will go, and the name will be picked up by a child. And that person will administer for 3 years. But for the next term, he or his family member cannot come. And if he is found guilty of mismanagement, his family cannot come for a generation. There are wonderful rules laid by the Cholas, which we can adapt. And the trustees, they should hold a minimum period of 3 years so that they can do something reasonably well. And whenever there are disputes of the action taken by the trustees or among the trustees themselves, no case should be filed in a secular court without it being appealed to the Dharmic Parishad, which will be a central body overseeing temple administration. Next slide, please. As far as the administration of immovable properties are concerned, we have fine examples which can be followed, imitated, like the estate offices of Indian Railways, State Bank of India, LIC, Life Insurance Corporation. They have vast properties and they all come under an office called estate office. So if a person occupying a building belonging to State Bank of India, he has a problem in the rentals or rental revisions, or he is a defaulter. The case cannot go to a regular court directly, but it will go to the estate office, where there will be an estate officer who has quasi-judicial powers. He will have the powers of a judge, and he will decide the cases as per the Estate Office Act, particularly for the railways or for the State Bank of India and all that. Similarly, for every district, we should have an estate office for temple properties, so that cases are adjudicated quickly and fairly. And currently, the civil courts are giving stay orders for vacating a defaulter or an encroacher at the drop of a hat. That will change if estate office happens. Next slide, please. So the other standards of administration we should follow the external audit by qualified auditors. The audit objection should be resolved in 3 months. Tamil Nadu today, from 1986, 1.5 million audit objections are pending. And there is no external audit. There is only an internal audit. And this is how the government looting is pushed well under the carpet. Temples, once they come out of government, they should still adhere to RTI, Right to Information Act. At least 85% of the RTI Act should apply to temples. And Government of India accounting standards applicable to trusts should also apply to temples. There should be a minimum administration cost. Today, under the government, temples are incurring huge administration cost. Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, which is the Balaji temple, Tirupati, suddenly from 2014, 15, 16 onwards, the salary bill started increasing because the government administrators started appointing people left, right, and center after taking huge corruption money. And today, 3,500 crores annual income of Tirupati, 40 to 44% goes on salaries. A huge chunk. That is an unproductive salary. The temple income is going, instead of the money being used to build institutions, build more schools, more colleges, help more hospitals. It is going in the guise of salaries, and we do not even know if those salaried persons are all Hindus. There's a huge percentage of non-Hindus working in Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. So the administration cost should be kept to the minimum. The temple records should be published in a book form and made available, including photographs of statuaries and jewels, so that they cannot be easily replaced with fakes. All charities and endowments should be registered. Next slide, please.
Is that the right one? Yes.
Yes. So besides temples, there are a lot of mutts which own a lot of properties or which have a lot of following. They have a greater role to play. Today, the Matadhipatis, many of them, instead of being the guiding beacons of Hindu Dharma, one, they are looking after their own mutts and they're not coming out of it. They are in a shell. Or there is crass nepotism and favoritism within the mutt. The Matadhipati, who is supposed to sever his relationship with his family and the general society, still has connections with the families, and people from the family and the extended family get appointed or get favors in the mutt. These things have to be changed. They have to become very transparent in that. They have to ensure not even a near relative or a far relative takes an advantageous position in the mutt. And mutts should start dharmic institution. They should start more schools, more colleges, hospitals. The Chinchingiri mutt in Karnataka is a fine example of that. They have more than 40, 50,000 students under the umbrella, which is a phenomenal thing because when these students come up, they become adults, they enter into careers, they will come out, they will be with people with excellent values. Because Chinchin Mutt ensures that the schools, colleges are run in a proper Sanatan way, imbibing culture and values. Next slide, please. Go ahead.
Yes.
We'll quickly cross
So,
over.
so TRG, under the current constitution, are we allowed to have, are the Mutts allowed to operate such schools or
Absolutely, of course,
are.
yes. They have.
But the only thing is the funds are taken away from us, right? That is the reason.
No, the problem.
The
there are two problems. I'll come to that. One is the true income of the temples are not, the properties are not realized because government is controlling them and the market value is not being realized. Like I told you, the Vedaranyeswara temple, ₹2 per acre. Instead of that, if they get 25,000 rupees per acre, imagine the amount of charities they can do. Imagine the amount of institutions they can start and run. So this is the slide. South Indian temple properties, if utilized property, can generate $6 billion every year. This is only South India. Karnataka, Kerala, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu alone has 4.75 lakh acres of agricultural lands, 30 crore square feet of sites, and 22,600 buildings. If the true income or even the fair income instead of the market income comes, these southern states can generate 6 billion. And with these enormous income and wealth, education and healthcare will become free or almost free for Hindus. And that will leave a lot of money in the hands of Hindus, to improve their standard of life, etc. They will get enormous value and culture. Two, they'll save a lot of money. And if we issue quasi-currency bonds with the Padmanabha Swami temple wealth in Trivandrum, Kerala, RBI can generate 300,000 crores. And for 300,000 crores, if they give 4% interest, that will be 12,000 crores per annum. 3 times the income of, or more than 3 times the income of Tirumala Tirupati temple, Padmanabha Swami temple can generate. And Kerala, which is fast becoming a minority Hindu state, can have a revival. There will be a renaissance. There will be a Garvapsi. There will be, people, many a time people lose their religion because they feel insecure among the, when you place a Hindu among hundreds of Muslims or Christians, sooner or later he'll be converted either by force or by his own voluntarism because he doesn't feel secure. So with this money, next slide, we run temples, we run education institutions, hospitals, etc., patashalas, goshalas. We help the artisans, sculptors, painters, gold and silver smiths. Then we can indulge in Vedic farming, heirloom seeds, save our desi cattle, support Sanskrit, Shastras, and works in the regional languages, publication of Itihasas, Bhakti literature. All this is possible because our ancestors have left thousands and thousands of acres of land. And today real estate is king, but the temples are not putting their lands to the best use thanks to government. Next slide, please. Okay, we come to the Karnataka government announcement, which actually took me by surprise because I did not expect such a positive announcement. But this Chief Minister Bommai, he seems to be a person of a different metal, and I really appreciate him. I'm in touch with the government, but I cannot reveal what we are doing at the moment. But Hindu Dharma Acharya Sabha is also in touch with the government. They want to come up with an alternate law. We want to come in the collective. We want to come with an alternate law, which is more sharp and more, which will stand the test of time. So the Chief Minister not only made an announcement out of the blue, he also followed up with a proper announcement in the Assembly, Karnataka Assembly, during the budget session. Earlier, Karnataka had 4 acts. The act governing the Mysore region, then the act governing some of the regions closer to Tamil Nadu, for which the Tamil Nadu Act was being followed. Some of the districts were with the Bombay presidency, then they came under the Karnataka state. So they had the Bombay Act, and some of the districts came from the Hyderabad government. So they had their own acts. So all these acts were abandoned and a new act was brought in 1997, which had a lot of controlling sections, and many people challenged it. And in the judgment of Sagastra Lingeshwara Temple, this act was struck down in 2008 by 2 judges. This is a division bench of the Karnataka High Court. Subsequent to that, the government went to Supreme Court and they promised to come with a new act. They did come with a new act, but which is worse than the 1997 act. And even though there was Congress and BJP, nothing really happened. This Chief Minister Bommai has on his own announced this and is serious about it. He has made a very, very clear announcement saying that the new act will be a regulating act. It will not be a controlling act. That's what we want. We do not want government to completely go away. We do not want government to say that temples can be run in any which way they want. We want a regulation. We want to say that you cannot have more than 15% of the total income as salaries. Something. This is called a regulation. You fix.
But should the government, TRJ, should the government give those directives, or should it be?
No, it will be. The government will not give directions. The government will create a law. And the law will be followed. See, supposing this is the difference between control and regulation, I'll tell you. If the government law says every temple should prepare its budget before 1st of March and send it to the commissioner of the endowments department for approval.
So, TRJ, there is one question about this. Rajivji has a question whether the Hindu Parishad has already been formed, and I think the Acharya Sabhas have been meeting, right, in different towns, as far as I know. Is that true?
They are meeting in different towns, but they are working on a specific project regarding the new Karnataka Act.
Okay, because I think in Ahmedabad, I heard there was a meeting a couple of months ago.
Yeah, they have a meeting. They have what shall I say? They have conferences. They have legal conferences. They debate a lot.
But the Parishad has not been formed. I'm just sorry for intervening.
That can be formed only through law.
Only through law. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So if the law says send the budget, it's a regulation. If the law says the commissioner will make the budget for the temple, it is control. Every budget will have to be made by the commissioner and approved by him. Then it is control. But every temple has to have its own budget. They decide how much they're going to spend on the ritual. They decide how much they're going to spend on dharmic pravachans, bhajans, or on art or whatever. And then they send the total budget to the commissioner for information. It is regulation. So currently, the Acharya Sabha is presenting a model act. Indic Collective under me will present an act which I think will be more sharp. But there's no guarantee on which act or which part of the acts the government will accept or take up in the new act.
Right.
So Karnataka, we can expect something very quickly within 3 months.
Within 3 months. So it's not an election gimmick like someone wrote here.
No, he's very serious. You would have also seen the same chief minister has come out openly saying that non-Hindus cannot have their shops and in Hindu temples or even adjacent to Hindu temples. This is something totally against what Justice Chandrachud said in Supreme Court. He said temples are government entities and there should be no discrimination as to religion. Will he say the same thing for mosques? Will he say the same thing for churches? That is a question that begs to be asked by everybody. But the Chief Minister is very clear. Under the Act, under as per practice also, Muslims or other non-Hindus, they have no role or they have no right to open shops inside and adjacent to Hindu temples. He is very clear. I really appreciate it. Till date, he has been ringing the right tone. And by Bhagwan's grace, I hope he continues to do so and do much more for the Hindus in Karnataka and serve as a role model for the rest of India. I really appreciate him. The Uttarakhand Act was repealed thanks to the protests, vehement protests by the Hindu citizens of the state. Here in Karnataka, the government, the BJP government on its own, under Bommai, on its own has done that. So this is my final slide, Tamil Nadu updates. Recently, you know that there's a change in government in Tamil Nadu. The DMK has come. The DMK is a brazenly, openly atheist party. Not only atheist, they are anti-Hindu party. And they see temple as an opportunity to loot. They have announced in the last assembly session, civil projects was worth 1,500 crores using temple monies. The advantage for these party men in announcing these civil projects is they get at least 30% as kickback. They also wanted to melt the jewels of the temple and put them as gold deposits. A scheme which looks fine, but you will never know how much gold was melted and how much pure gold was obtained. So they wanted to make a killing there. Thanks to brilliant arguments by Sai Deepak, the case I filed, we got a stay order there. But that was under Sanjeev Banerjee, a brilliant judge, a forthright, honest, upright judge, who also gave me, when I filed a case and appeared as party in person, government wanted to start colleges, secular colleges using temple money. I got a stay out of there. 4 colleges started. So the judge said, these will be tested during the hearing. And if it is found they have been started unlawfully, they will be closed. And for the other 6 colleges they were going to start, a stay order was obtained. Till date, the gold melting and the college stay order stands hold. But in a case where I filed that besides executive officers, other government servants are being appointed to the temple, the case was dismissed by the current Chief Justice. Flagrantly, openly violative of law, the government is doing this. But the Chief Minister's dismissal order is against the Supreme Court earlier judgments and against law. I had filed another case which came up 2 days later of this first dismissal. And at the admission stage itself, he dismissed my case. A very, very strongly written case and with facts. I should not say this about my own case, but I never file a case without solid proofs of evidence and the solid question of law. He dismissed it and he made a fatal mistake in his order. So that way I'm happy because Supreme Court will see that obvious mistake in his order. But why should Hindus be shunted from High Court to Supreme Court and then wait there, the case to come, then the Supreme Court judges say, what is this? It happened before. When I challenged the very bread and butter of the corruption of HRNC department, they somehow get the judges to dismiss the case in the admission stage itself. And I went to Supreme Court in 2016 against a similar dismissal. Supreme Court says, shocking, how can the High Court do this? So I'm very happy saying that we are going to get a good order. But the Supreme Court says, we are reverting the case back to the High Court. They have not discussed this on merits. So we advise the petitioner to file a review petition. How do you like that? I take great efforts to go to Supreme Court. I spent thousands and thousands on filing the case. Thankfully, the senior counsel, C.S. Vaidyanathan, comes pro bono for me. And he argues beautifully. But the judges say, High Court has made a blunder. We want them to hear again. Why should the bench which made a blunder should hear the matter again? And I come and file a review petition here in 2017. It's not taken up even 2022. 5 years have passed. I'm going to move the Supreme Court again, saying that the High Court has not taken up the case. You take it up. So we are like a football kicked around. And I just went to Delhi. I found a new advocate on record. Of course, filing cases in Delhi costs a lot of money, but thanks to senior counsel again offering to come pro bono for me, or not for me, for the temples, for the dharmic purpose, I'm very confident. And of course, I have J. Sai Deepak there, who is a big source of strength legally and otherwise for me. So we will win there. And since it's the Supreme Court, it will be a decisive win. Thank you very much. Saving our temples is a dharmic responsibility. It's Rishi Rinam, our debt to our ancient rishis, because the rishis are the ones who established our temples. We owe it to our past generations and to save our temples, and we shall save them. Thank you very much. And thank you for being very patient.
Thank you so much, DRG. This was wonderful. And also, I think a lot of questions in the chat box, a lot of outrage, We, of course, know the issue, but of course, we do not know it in depth like you do, and what you face on a day-to-day basis, talking to a hostile, hostile judges, dealing with the hostile bureaucrats and whatnot. So there's a lot of outrage on the chat box about how we are losing all of these funds. I'm going to quickly take over questions, but I want to ask one question, which is from...
To know it in depth. Jokingly said.
Sorry, TRG, you said something?
Yeah, sorry, the connection went momentarily.
Oh,
I can hear you now.
You can hear me? Okay, good. So the question that Rajiv ji raises here is that, during the Tenancy Act, a lot of the temple lands were taken away. Is that true? And there is that possible that we can, as Hindus, once there's autonomy, can we fight the case to take back those lands and all of the secular institutions that were put up there?
There are two things. Many of the land, yeah. I had some problem in hearing you.
I think, even I couldn't hear you properly. So,
okay, let's try and move to a different room. I'm sorry. I think my network is a little unstable. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you quite well. We heard you all through the presentation also. I'm going to have people in the order in which have received the raise hand. I'm going to ask Lakshman Kanduriji to unmute and ask your question. And I will ask that question again after Lakshman Kanduriji, TRG, about the Tenancy Act. But please go on.
Okay.
Lakshman, please go on. Ask your question. Please unmute. Please unmute yourself. Are you able to unmute? Yes.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. My questions are twofold. One is, under which are the churches and masjids and mosques, are they regulated? If so, in what way? Can you emulate that? Number one, can we ask for similar, process for Hindu temples to be, if at all, if they're regulated? The other two, like masjids and the churches. Number one. Number two is, how do you find accountability? The second part of the question is there no accountability for judges? They can do as they please, or is there any way to make them accountable? That's my second question. Easier to ask than answer, I know that.
Right.
Your second question makes me think you're not in India.
Of course not. Yeah. Yes, I'm in the US. Yeah.
Yes, in the US, the judges are accountable.
Right.
That's why I said. So
Right.
I think I have almost answered your second question. The Indian
I mean, is
system
there
is,
any way to make them
we,
accountable?
yeah, we need to bring more awareness and make them really accountable. Because if a judge gives a judgment in stark violation of a bigger court or in stark violation of the constitution, he should be pulled up. At least say
Right.
that in that particular matter, he should not be anymore be adjudicating. We have to, and the media, not just the social media, the regular media should name him and shame him. These things are not happening at
Right.
all in India. We need a bigger set of people with bold values to start that process. The first question is, there is a regulation for Islamic charities. It is called the Waqf Act. Islamic charity is called Waqf.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a regulation for the Islamic charities, but not for the places of worship.
Yeah.
Mosques will not come under any government regulation.
Mm-hmm.
For the Christian institutions, whether it is a place of worship, whether it is a school or a college or a charity, they have no law controlling them or regulating them. They have the best advantage in India, so that they could carry their missionary work unquestioned.
So that's a discrimination, right?
That's a definite discrimination, which we expect the BJP government in majority power the last 7 years to set right. We really expect this from them to set it right.
Okay, I think that I'll go on to the next question. Sergi, I think, thank you so much, Lakshmanji, for asking that question. And I will ask Vijay Raghavanji, is he next? Yes, I think you're next. Please unmute and ask your question.
My question is, recently the Ayodhya Mandapam was taken over, and Madras High Court has upheld the decision to take over on grounds saying this is not the correct place to file a writ petition and all that. So my question is, now do we now go to a situation where what is a temple, even that will be defined as per law, or how it will be like going forward?
Okay, the Ayodhya Mandapam judgment which came up recently does not authorize the government to take over the place. It's only the social media, the message is being spread saying that the judgment has gone against Ayodhya Mandapam and government is going to take over. There is nothing in the judgment which authorizes the government to take over. The judgment says the claim of the government is this is a temple. The claim of the Ram Samaj which runs that place is that it's not a temple. So the writ court, where you file a writ petition, is not the appropriate court to decide whether a place is a temple or not. That's what the judgment says.
No, so
Now,
that is the
now even if there is a, supposing it's a temple, the Ram Samaj is a place where bhajans and pravachans happen. Okay, and there's an idol of Hanumanji there. That doesn't make it a temple. But supposing it's a temple, what right does the government have to take over that place? Just because it's a temple, can they take over? Supreme Court's constitutional benches have again and again given judgment saying, if a religious institution is mismanaged, the funds are misused, then only government can take over for a limited period. Just because a place is a Hindu temple, they cannot take over. The court should understand that, and the Hindus should understand that.
A follow-up question. I was following your Twitter handle where you mentioned that Tamil Nadu government is planning to take over Chidambaram temple by special law. So, will that hold good?
It will not hold good, but that will not stop the atheist government from making a special law, which is against the constitution. And the moment you rush to the High Court to get a stay of the unlawful act, you're not assured of success. You never know what will happen in the court. And that's enough for the government to, bring the special act. Chidambaram temple, the case was won by the denomination in 1951, again in 1954, and again in 2014. It's a very clearly laid out judgment which says that the Deekshitars are a denomination and only they have the right to administer their own temples. But the minister announces in an open meeting saying that we are going to bring a special law to take over the temple. That's Tamil Nadu for you.
Thank you, Tiaji. Thank you for your questions, Vijayji. I think I'm going to let Vaidyanathanji ask his question. And people are asking, I have just linked, put up the link for PayPal donations. Tia Rameshji's PayPal account is in the chat box. Please be generous and donate because, this fight
I do not have a PayPal account.
You don't have a PayPal account anymore?
No.
I think we used to use that before. Should we do it just in the Saint Sekizar?
Saint Sekizar has an account, but I do not, as you know, solicit funds.
You don't?
I'm embarrassed. Anyway, let's go on with the presentation.
Yes, but TRG, I think it's very important that we also.
Yeah, I need funds, but I never asked for it.
Yes, but Artha drives Dharma. That is something I have learned. And, for every fight, it's a very important thing that we all put up. I mean, that's all we can do. We cannot go to the courts and fight these cases. TRG, you are doing that on behalf of the community. So we are doing what we can do. So please let us donate. That's the only thing we can do at this time, and be with you in this fight. So Vaidyanathanji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Richa-ji. Namaste, Tia Ramesh. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. I have quite a few questions, but you answered some of them already. So you spoke about Article 26 earlier, but one of the articles I'm reading online, it says Articles 30 and 30A prevent Hindus from teaching Hinduism to children in schools and stuff like that. Not being able to get too much about 30A. And so if you can talk about Article 30 that's doing that.
There's nothing that prevents Hindus from teaching Hinduism in the schools. It's an incorrect interpretation.
Okay.
Just like in the US, here also, in a government school, you cannot teach religion. It's supposed to be secular and all that. Now, a school run by Hindus, they can have the Hindu prayers, they can have Hindu classes, moral classes, etc., etc. Nothing stops them. But a special right is given to the minorities, which is specifically mentioned. Now, this minority rights are some of the most abused or misused rights. This needs a separate discussion, but I'll put it in a nutshell. As far as religious rights are concerned, there are no minority religious rights in the Constitution, period. There is no minority religious right in the Constitution. Article 26 is enough for the Hindus to have their own schools and colleges and teach Hinduism in their institutions. Nothing stops them.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, I know we said Chief Minister Bommai is doing things to this one, and I know you also said you cannot talk too much about it, but how do we, whatever changes he's bringing about, how do we prevent future governments from undoing everything he might be doing?
See, for 2 generations, we have not been conscious of our rights. The one thing I just said 2 minutes ago, Article 26, Hindus are just unaware about it.
Right.
If the Sampradaya can administer its own institutions, its own charities, people used to think, and even the courts used to say, these rights are available to Muslims and Christians and not to Hindus, because Hindus are not a denomination. But Hindus are not a denomination that will not hold water, at least after 1987. And we are going to go to the court on this vehemently, strongly. We are going to say we are not a denomination, we are a Sampradaya. Our Sampradaya is entitled to Article 26 or not. That's what our argument is going to be. Now, the future governments, will they undo, like the Tamil Nadu government is trying to undo for Chidambaram temple judgment? Yes, it might happen, but we have to bounce back. We have to come back. If we recover a property and we enjoy it for 5 years or 6 years, then suddenly somebody else comes and encroaches it. Will we not defend it?
Yep.
We have to defend it. We can't say that we went to the court once, I can't go to the court again. That's giving up our rights.
Yep. Okay. One last thing is, most of my family members
get in, Vedinath, just because there's a lot of a couple of people who are
question. You can answer it on the WhatsApp group or this one. Most of my extended family, relatives and stuff like that in Chennai area, they don't understand the injustices being done in the temples. They continue to vote for DMK and they continue to not see what's happening to the temples. How can we educate them? You don't have to answer it here. You can do it in WhatsApp. That's fine.
I'll make a note of it. It's a very serious question, but
yeah,
Hindus are famous.
They don't even serious question. Yes. But I can say that even I have the same problem, my family. And I can say that when Sadhguruji raised that issue, a lot of my family said, oh, this is what you were talking about. When I used to ask them to donate, they would never donate. But now, they understand at least what the issue was. So I'm going to let Anand Maharajanji talk and ask the question. So thank you so much for your questions, Vedinath. And I think it's the most important question. How do we make most of the Hindus aware of this issue? It has become a lot more mainstream, but still not. Anandji, please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thanks for the presentation. I have one main question. So recently there was this, actually two. Recently there were two landmark judgments in Tamil Nadu, right? Like the 75 directives that were given to HRNCE, and the HRNC minister, of course, has a lot of bravado, claiming that he is recovering the lands and stuff. But obviously, it's a lot of gas in that statement rather than substance. So when the government is not even acting on the court judgment, what else do we have as an option? That is my first question. And the second question regarding the Koil Dharmagartas. Recently, there was an order to appoint Dharmagartas, and then I heard, I think I have been following you, where the government is not even publishing the forms to apply for those kind of positions, right? So what is happening on that front? So those were my two questions.
I mean, the two questions actually have one answers. Governments do not want to follow the directions of the court.
Yeah.
But in a way, the courts are also to be blamed. The 75 directions were given in a writ petition 574 of 2015, of which I was also a part. And again, we are now filing various contempt petitions in the same judgment before the same bench. The last hearing was on Friday. I had gone there. We bring a lot of violations against the judgment to the attention of the court. And the court again only issues notice. The court needs to send 2 or 3 IAS officers to jail for their violation, for the delayed implementation, etc. They say we will file a status report, and the court adjourns the matter. And when they file a status report, there are so many holes to pick up. Then we have to file another petition saying the status report is lacking in truth, the status report is wrong here in point A, point B, point X, etc. And again, there's another hearing. The contempt of court is the least powerful power of the Indian courts, or they don't have them.
The contempt of court may be applied for citizens, but not for the government employees.
Not for the government and IAS officers. That seems to be the. So as far as the trustee matter is concerned, you said it rightly, they are not even publishing the right forms. And there are 20-25 cases pending in that matter in courts. The trustees were to be formed without any delay. That order, I was the one to secure it. And In my case filed in 2015, they gave an undertaking to the court that the trustees will be appointed very, very quickly. And where are we now? We are in 2022, 7 years. The courts are not pulling up the government. That's
yeah,
really
it's like we are shouting against a wall rather than a responsible institution.
So I'm filing 2 more contempt petitions in that 75 directions case. That will come 2 weeks from now. And there are a lot of one good thing happened in that judgment is temple lands are not to be taken over by government for public purposes. They tried to do that. We filed a contempt immediately, and government has come to the court and said we will not do it. That is the only positive thing that has come out of the judgment so far. The other positive things need to be followed by the government, which they are doing at their own speed and or with reluctance.
So, like, I think there's a question in the chat box. So, a government school cannot be set up, a secular school cannot be set up on those lands. Is that the outcome of that? That
not just schools, factories, etc., etc. You know, a Hindu temple property is Hindu space. Usually, these properties are in and around the temples. If government says, "I want to set up a factory, I want to build a new bus stand, I want to do this, I want to do that," and take over only Hindu temple properties, because if they have to take private properties, they have to deal with some 5 or 6 people, because one person will have 1 acre, another person will have 2 acres and all. Instead of that, they take 50 acres of a land, of a temple land. It is easy, and there's nobody to object. That's what they've been doing. And we are going to challenge some of the takeovers of lands in the last 20 years, because the due process laid down in law is not practiced. So we have put a stop to that. By God's grace, I was able to get a first stay order on government takeover of Hindu temple lands in 2019. And subsequent to that, it has become a complete judgment. I got an interim stay. Now this has become a fully fledged order.
Okay. I think, thank you so much, Anandji, for your question, for all the support that you also give us, in the fight. And I will go next to, I cannot see your name. I just see a number.
Is it WB78174?
Yes.
Sorry, I that's my official thing. I didn't change the name on this for this Zoom call. My name is Mohinder.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but TRG, does Zelle work for your account, or is there a way to? Oh, Zelle, I think this is a question for me. Zelle payments, yes, you can Zelle payments to me also in US dollars. I will make sure to send it in rupees to TRG, because we do not have FCRA support yet for the organization. So just let me know. Zelle me the amount on richagatham@gmail.com. I will transfer it in rupees. Thank you.
Okay.
So please go ahead. Please ask the question.
Okay.
Yes.
My name is Mohinder Gulati. Thank you very much. It was a very, very enlightening presentation and a conversation. I hope you can get a copy of this presentation. My question is that all these efforts, wonderful, great efforts, are all focused on mobilizing the judiciary, going to the courts, going to the bureaucracy, appeal. But 2 things that are missing, which will hold not only the judiciary, but also the governments accountable, is the involvement of the communities, a broader engagement, outreach, and involvement of the communities, which will put then more pressure on the governance institutions, which is the politicians and the bureaucracy, to do the right thing by the right for the Hindus as well. So that is something which it seems is missing, and that is also what will hold judiciary accountable. That's one. And second, there is this expectation that the government, starting with the initiative of Karnataka government, that the governments may be more and more inclined to hand over the management of the temples back to the community, or remove government control. But are the communities ready to take over these temples? Do they have the capacity? Are we creating the capacity in terms of Government will frame the model, act, and rules. But we need to have the communities be ready to create a trust, create a standard operating procedures, create a transparent system of accounts and audit and public accountability by the community getting involved in the management of the temples. So that institutional capacity that needs to be created in the communities, are we getting ready for that? And just give me 30 seconds more and I will make a comment, not a question. And I'll tell you when I say we have started very recently an organization called Global Hindu Temple Network. It has not yet been launched. It has been registered as a trust and we have put all the basic building blocks together. This will be a network which will bring in all the temples around the world into an information sharing network. So we'll create a timely and real-time information sharing, create a shared awareness, create shared consciousness so that this information can go out to everybody in all the temples, and also that they can start taking coordinated action. So the chairman of this is Mr. Sampath, who's the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. And the treasurer is Mr. Amulya Charan, who is the former CEO of Tata Power Company. And I'm the managing trustee. I retired as a chief operating officer from the United Nations and from the World Bank. So we have started this and we'll be launching it soon in about a few months. But you can go to our website, which is www.ghtn.in, which is Global Hindu Temple Network.in. And we are trying to work on the community side, not on the legal side, but much more on the community side of creating a network of communities where information can be shared very quickly and awareness can be created so that you get a lot more support from the work that is being done. So thank you very much. And I'll appreciate if you can respond to the two questions that I have.
So Mohinderji, thank you. And I hope you will join our chat, our WhatsApp chat group. TRG, please go.
I certainly will. I just got the information from a friend at 12:30 and I immediately joined. So I certainly look forward to continuing the conversation with you.
As for the community response, Hindus are still a docile community. Even today, 50% of the Hindus will not react even if you go hit at their backs. That's why when Jaggi Vasudev Ji, when he started this campaign, and a lot of people responded to it, I was very happy because I could see an awakening. It was a beautifully run campaign, which made a lot of people sit up and take notice and all that. As you said, there are three ways of doing it. One is the awareness, and the second thing is the legal intervention, and third thing is the agitation. In the case of a Jallikattu matter, the bullfight, agitation worked. In some cases, including my cases, legal intervention works, but the awareness is much higher. The awareness should lead to agitation or uproar. So Jaggi's campaign started beautifully, but he gave up suddenly. I don't know why. That sort of campaign has to run every part of India. It happened in Uttarakhand because a lot of outrage among the people. It's a small state, less populated, and mostly Hindu and mainly connected with temples. So it was easy there. In a state like Kerala, where the Hindus are the receiving end, and a state like Tamil Nadu, where the government is atheist and anti-Hindu, the level of agitation awareness has to be in different levels. That is to answer your first questions. The second question, this presentation is to showcase that Hindus are ready and they can manage. They can very well manage. They've been managing it. And even today, it's only the Hindus who are in the government who are managing our temples. So it is not as difficult as we think it is. It is not really difficult. Only thing is, we need to keep the infighting at the lowest ebb. Lowest ebb. We are ready to manage temples.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mahendraji, and I hope we can keep the conversation going. Please do join our group. And I ask everyone here to join our group. Namaste. And Praveenji.
Just one second. The campaigns have to be sustained. So awareness cannot be episodical. It cannot be just one issue awareness. It has to be sustained. So you need this kind of network and institutional arrangement where it is on a regular basis. The discrimination and injustices that are faced by somebody in Kakinada and a temple in Guntur or a temple in Kolkata, that they should be able to share that information with the whole community of network. And that should then raise awareness of everyone, and also coordinated action to stand up with each other and provide mutual support to all the temple communities. So I'll just stop there. I know I don't know to hog the conversation. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Rita. Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So I think, the timing is just apt. In fact, I think the gentleman read my mind, or definitely read the question on the chat, because my question is connected to the whole awareness moment, right? And at the outset, TRG, I think thank you so much for the wonderful session. Lot of insights. So the question which I had was, summing up just the previous question, is it possible that we use the regulation which you mentioned, right? Is it possible to tweak that regulation, or maybe piggyback on top of it to put to kind of force a social obligation so that we close ranks? As such, we respect other sampradayas. If I go to Srirangam, I also go to Chidambaram, but there is no obligation. If another temple out there in Kashmir is desecrated, nobody reacts. If some temple in Karnataka is under, or something has happened, there is again, we are a docile community, as you very well put out. Can we, why waste this issue? Can we use this issue and on top of it frame regulations saying that, hey, the temples which your freedom will come at a cost, and the cost is you have to give it back to the network of other temples. If somebody is in need, you have to stand up. You can't be a mute spectator. Close ranks and participate.
That needs a lot of loyalty towards your dharma.
Correct.
You need to be loyal to your dharma. You need to always be conscious of the desecration that happens in one part of India is ultimately aimed at desecration at your hometown also. That kind of awareness, that kind of knowledge is lacking among Hindus. The second way of countering it, even though it's a little indirect way, it will look like you have to be strong institution-wise. Today, Tamil Nadu temples can produce 6,000 crore rupees per annum as property income. No exaggeration here. Imagine if 6,000 crores is produced for 10 years, and this money, at least 50% of it is used to build institutions, schools, colleges, hospitals, other training institutes, other art and culture centers. Imagine the number of people you can employ, the number of people you can empower. And with people empowered with career and the motive and the direction, you can build a beautiful network which will reverberate whenever some injustice happen towards Hindus in one part of India. The reverberation, the reaction will happen here if you have institutions
Absolutely.
working in a cohesive manner. So that's what the government has prevented in the last 50, 60 years. They have prevented Hindus from starting their own institutions. That's why we want the temples to come back from the government to the Hindus. Without institutions, you will not have the secured feeling. You will not have the connected feeling. You will not have the bold feeling. You will not have a direction. So let's
Very well
go
said.
free our temples, and with the free temples, let's build institutions.
Thank you,
Right.
Tiranga. Just one last thing I had was, maybe I think when this regulation comes in, the temples, in addition to reporting their financial metrics, KPI, they may also say, what is my KPI towards Dharma Samrakshana and Dharma, what do you call, in terms of spreading, how many people was I able to bring back to the Hindu folds? How many Garvapsis? How many new, yes, I think all of these would help to build a very strong institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Praveenji, and thank you for all the support that you provide and the donations. Thank you very much. And Gayatri ji, namaste. Thank you for being here, and please ask your question.
Namaskar. Thank you very much, Richa ji, for this beautiful program, and Ramesh ji, a very wonderful presentation. And
thank you.
Sir, I have two questions. One is about the Archakas, because we feel that the Archaka community has completely been neglected for the past 75 years. It has been completely neglected. There's no income for them, and they are even being pushed out of their jobs. For example, the Supreme Court, I think, has ruled that there is no need for an ancestral Archaka system being there in place, like anyone can be appointed. So that makes the whole system go awry. We lose the whole tradition and the rituals that have to be performed. How do we address that? And then we had the Tamil Nadu now government coming up with some kind of a certificate course where they provide, and they say that the traditional Shivacharyas and Bhattacharyas would not be employed, and these certificate course people, Archakas, would be employed. That is quite against the agamas. That is one issue. How do we handle that? And one more thing I would like to ask is, like we saw the Lingayat kind of mutts being running these schools and hospitals in say Karnataka, for example. I saw in TV programs many of the students there having the school students, they consist of all communities, and they were singing the usual Ishwal Allah Tero Naam business. So how do we ensure that the Hindu ethos is being run and not this secular thing being taught in Hindu schools run by our own Hindu mutts? How can we ensure that?
Okay, now the Archaka thing, we have two questions. Archakas have been a target, that is mainly the Brahmin Archakas have been a target by the DMK government from 1970s. So that's when the Sheshamal case came. And the Sheshamal case, while it said 75% good thing, it refrained from saying the rest of the 25%. Again, the whole thing boils down to denomination, sampradaya, the rights under Article 26, etc. The certificate course now being touted by the government, Tamil Nadu government, to replace the Brahmin Archakas is not actually an Agama course. So the cases are currently pending. 18 cases were filed without a relief. I filed the 19th case and I got a relief because we went strong on legal points, and I had a Supreme Court lawyer, M.R. Venkatesh, come and argue the case. And when the judge asked, are you saying that like a lawyer studying in any law college can come and argue in any court? Why can't that be the case in Archaka? He said, that's not the case with Archakas. A dentist cannot do a cardiac surgery, and vice versa. A cardiac surgeon cannot do a root canal operation. So this Agama, this learned person can only perform in the temple that follows that Agama. So he put it beautifully before the judge and explained to him, and we got a stay order saying that only those Agama Archakas trained in the particular Agama of the temple can be appointed. So that order I got in November 2021. It is still an interim order, not a final order. That's one thing. We will also get something good on the Archaka training system, because to study the Vedas, you need 7 years 12 hours a day without break, that kind of a oral tradition learning. Similarly, with the Agamas, we need at least 3 to 4 years. So a 6-month certificate course without knowing a single akshara in Sanskrit will not work. We'll come to that. Now, the other cases, why should the institutions run by Hindu societies and Hindu temples should have Ishwar Allah Tera Ram? That's really our stupidity. This is something where the Hindu Dharma Acharya Shabash should take lead. They should have a standard set of prayers for schools, the values, people slowly and steadily, they reduce the size of bindi and then they entirely removed it. So something like that is happening in the schools in regard to our prayers and other things. We should not allow it. I think the Acharya Sabha has a bigger role to play there. The Madhadhipatis have a bigger role to play there. They should be our guiding beacons. This only then people will listen in thousands and 10,000s. If an individual goes and says, it will not work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you for attending. And TRG, thank you for answering that. I think there's one question in the chat box which is relevant. I think we should end with that. And we talked about Karnataka, but Uttarakhand, there's a concern that the demography is changing. I think Uttarakhand is also one of the campaigns they ran was about freeing the temples, right? So what do you see that? Where do you see that going? Do you think it'll happen?
Uttarakhand has reverted to the 1939 Act. The temples not actually set free, but the abject control which the BJP government brought in 2018-19, that has gone. We need to save Uttarakhand by declaring those places as overtly Hindu. There's nothing that stops the government from doing that. Like in Tirupati, you can't build a church or you can't build a mosque because the place has been declared a Hindu religious place primarily. Similarly, the Char Dhams have to be declared. And the demography change should not be allowed. That is the last bastion for Hindus, and the Kavod and other rituals and the pilgrimage, everything will get affected. In fact, the Uttarakhand BJP government, they brought the act to make those places a tourist place. You cannot go as a tourist to these places. You have to go as a pilgrim. You have to go as a devotee. So those places have to be declared overtly Hindu and they have to be saved. If the demography changes, then we are to be blamed.
Right. TRG, I think you told me the quote that Martin Luther King once said that everywhere else I go as a tourist, but to India, I come as a pilgrim. Yes, and Martin, we have to, right? And that is something that I think we have to make that happen, that our temples stay, with that ancient heritage and the motive that the temples were built with, with the sampradaya, the concept, some of the Sino Joseph has brought about so much information about how I've read some of her book and interacted with her, and she talks about how temples are consecrated and created with energy with the pran pratishtha. So those are such important aspects. So we cannot have more of touristy temples. We need to bring back. So I don't know if there are any more questions, but I think I want to make the last appeal to please send in your donations. Every dollar counts, every rupee counts. So this is very important because temples are the heartbeat of our civilization, and there has been a clear-cut, motive to subvert our identity, our Hindu identity within India by making the constitution itself anti-India, by keeping our temples away from the Hindus, and to fight for that autonomy is the most important thing. So Rameshji, thank you so much for all the work that you do. I know dealing with Indian courts is not the most pleasant thing, and it's hard work, and thank you for taking care of it.
I really cannot express my thanks to you. You've been a great support. You've been a great coordinating person. And my request once again, get some sleep. You're working, you're burning more than the midnight oil. You're really working hard. And my thanks to everyone who came here today and listened patiently to my little presentation. Thank you very much. Jai Shri Ram. Har Har Mahadev. Namaste.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.